Whispers of the Damned House. My name is Kelly and I never believed in ghosts. At least, not until that fateful autumn night when my group of friends and I decided to venture into the cursed confines of the old Jenkins house. It was a place whispered about in hushed tones, a relic of dread and despair that loomed ominously on the outskirts of our sleepy town. Legend had it that an entire family had met a gruesome end within those walls, and their tormented spirits had never found peace. It all began innocently enough, a dare born of teenage bravado. We were a tight-knit group, bound together by the tapestry of childhood memories and the excitement of our senior year. There was Sarah, the adventurous and often reckless leader of our pack, Mark, the gentle giant with an affinity for urban legends, Emily, the bookish skeptic who was always ready with a rational explanation, and Mike, the quiet one with a penchant for capturing every moment on his camera. On that crisp, moonlit night, we found ourselves standing before the Jenkins house. Its shadowy silhouette was illuminated by the eerie glow of a full moon, casting long, skeletal fingers that seemed to beckon us closer. Sarah, her eyes gleaming with a mixture of fear and excitement, was the first to break the silence. Tonight, my friends, we will uncover the truth about this place. Are you with me? I declared, my voice wavering only slightly. We exchanged nervous glances, but none of us were willing to back down. With a collective nod, we ventured into the house that had been a spectral enigma for generations. The moment we stepped across the threshold, a shiver ran down my spine. The air inside was heavy with the scent of decay and dampness, and the dim light from our flashlights did little to dispel the pervasive darkness that enveloped us. Mark, who had spent countless hours researching the house's history, began to recount the chilling tale. The Jenkins family, he whispered, his voice trembling, they say that nearly a century ago, the father, Samuel, went mad and slaughtered his wife and 3 children before taking his own life in the attic. Their souls are said to be trapped here, doomed to relive their final moments for all eternity. Emily scoffed. Urban legends and superstition, Mark. There's always a rational explanation for these things. But even my skepticism couldn't drown out the sense of foreboding that hung in the air. The wooden floors creaked beneath our feet, echoing through the abandoned corridors like mournful cries. We wandered through the dilapidated rooms, our flashlights revealing rotting wallpaper, decaying furniture, and a profound sense of desolation. It was Mike who first heard it, a faint, distant whisper that seemed to seep from the very walls themselves. We huddled together, listening intently, but the words remained elusive, like fleeting specters in the night. "Did you hear that?" Mike asked, his voice quivering. Sarah nodded, her eyes wide. "Keep your cameras ready, everyone. We might just catch something." As we continued to explore the house, the whispers grew louder, more insistent. It was as though the very essence of the house was trying to communicate with us, to share its macabre secrets. Emily's skepticism began to wane, replaced by an uneasy sense of dread. We reached the attic, the epicenter of the tragedy that had befallen the Jenkins family. The air was stifling, and our flashlights illuminated the room in eerie fragments. In the corner, a noose hung from a decaying beam, a grim testament to Samuel's gruesome end. And then, the whispers coalesced into words. My heart pounded as I strained to listen. "Why? Why did you do it?" the voices pleaded, a chorus of anguished souls trapped in a never-ending nightmare. The temperature plummeted, and our breaths formed frosty puffs in the frigid air. I could see my friends' faces, etched with a mixture of fear and confusion. There was no denying it anymore, the house was haunted. Before we could react, a chilling gust of wind chilled out bodies followed by our flashlights flickering then dying, plunging us into pitch-black darkness. Panic set in as we fumbled for our phones, desperate for any source of light. The whispers grew louder, closer, until they seemed to emanate from right beside us. And then, the room came alive with an otherworldly presence. A pale, ethereal figure materialized before us, its form hazy and indistinct. It was the spirit of Samuel Jenkins, his eyes empty sockets that radiated malevolence. His tattered clothes hung from his emaciated frame, and his fingers were stained with the blood of his family. Sarah screamed, a sound that reverberated through the attic, as Samuel's wretched form floated toward her. She tried to flee, but her feet were rooted to the floor. With a ghostly hand, he reached out, his fingers passing through her, sending a chill that seemed to freeze her soul. Sarah's scream was silenced as her body contorted in agony, her eyes wide with terror. Her life force was drained, and she crumpled to the ground, a lifeless husk. The rest of us, paralyzed by fear, watched in horror as Samuel turned toward us. The room seemed to close in around us, the walls oozing a grotesque ichor that pulsed with malevolent energy. We were trapped, with no way out. The attic was no longer a place of this world but a nightmarish realm where the boundaries between the living and the dead had dissolved. We could hear the anguished cries of Samuel's family, their spirits trapped here for eternity, their torment feeding his insatiable hunger. Mark, his eyes filled with terror, whispered, "We need to get out of here." But escape seemed impossible. The attic had become a nightmarish labyrinth of shifting walls and endless corridors. Every attempt to find the exit only led us deeper into the house's nightmarish embrace. As we stumbled through the ever-changing maze, we encountered other tormented spirits. The children, their faces twisted in eternal agony, reached out to us with spectral hands that dripped with ectoplasmic ichor. Emily was the next to fall, her screams echoing in the haunted house's unholy halls. With each passing moment, the malevolent force that held us captive grew stronger. We could feel it probing our minds, digging into our deepest fears and regrets, and using them against us. Shadows danced on the walls, taking the form of grotesque monsters and phantoms that whispered our darkest secrets. Mike, who had been documenting our ordeal, had been slowly losing his sanity. He muttered incoherent phrases, laughed like a madman with his eyes vacant, as he rewound his camera again and again, replaying the horrifying images of Sarah and Emily's deaths. It was as though the house had claimed his soul. We paused hearing his inhuman laughter and watched as he was pulled into the darkness by two deformed hands. His screams. We would never forget. Desperation gnawed at us, and we knew that our only hope lay in finding a way to break the curse that bound the Jenkins family to this wretched place. But the malevolent spirits grew more aggressive with every passing moment, tormenting us with their relentless whispers and nightmarish illusions. As we frantically searched for a way out of the haunted house, our heartbeats echoed in our ears like a relentless drumbeat of terror. The sinister presence that had haunted us throughout their nightmarish ordeal seemed to be closing in, its malevolent energy growing stronger with each passing moment. We stumbled through a labyrinthine maze of decrepit hallways, our footsteps echoing off the cracked, peeling wallpaper. The walls seemed to pulsate with a dark, foreboding energy, and the air was thick with a nauseating stench that seemed to emanate from the very walls themselves. With each turn, the house seemed to shift and change, its layout defying all logic and reason. Doors led to nowhere, and staircases spiraled endlessly into darkness. It was as if the house itself was alive, a malevolent entity toying with its prey. As we sprinted through the haunted mansion, a chorus of eerie whispers filled the air, chilling our core. The ghostly apparitions that had tormented us earlier now materialized, their ghastly forms reaching out with skeletal hands, their hollow eyes filled with malevolence. David and I pushed on, our fear-fueled adrenaline propelling us forward. We knew that there had to be a way out of this nightmare, a way to escape the clutches of the malevolent force that sought to consume us. Finally, we burst into a grand, cobweb-covered ballroom. Moonlight streamed in through shattered windows, casting long, eerie shadows across the room. At the far end, we spotted a massive, ornate mirror that seemed out of place in the decrepit mansion. The massive, ornate mirror stood out as a stark contrast to the decaying elegance of the mansion's interior. Its frame was intricately carved with twisted vines and grotesque figures, their contorted faces frozen in expressions of torment. The glass itself seemed to ripple with an otherworldly energy, like a dark pool of water that held secrets beyond imagination. As we approached the mirror in their desperate attempt to escape the relentless pursuit of the malevolent force, we saw something in its reflection that sent a chill down our spines. Instead of our own frightened faces staring back at us, we saw a twisted, nightmarish versions. Our own reflections were distorted, our faces contorted in pain and fear. We were trapped within the mirror, mirroring the torment that the mansion had inflicted upon us. It was as though the mirror held a malevolent realm of its own, a twisted parallel reality that threatened to consume us. With no other options left and the malevolent presence closing in, we made a split-second decision. We jumped through the mirror, shattering it into 1,000 shards as we did. The sensation of falling and being pulled through a vortex of darkness was disorienting, but it was a risk we had to take to escape the horrifying reflection of the mansion. We emerged on the other side, back outside in the mansion's overgrown garden, gasping for breath. The nightmare was over, but the image of that twisted reflection would haunt our nightmares for years to come, a grim reminder of the horrors we had faced within the malevolent mansion. We were the only survivors. The Jenkins house had exacted a terrible price for our intrusion, claiming the lives of 3 of our friends and nearly consuming our own souls. We had glimpsed the true horror that lurked within its walls, a malevolent force that fed on fear and despair. In the years that followed, we never spoke of that night, each of us carrying the scars of our ordeal in silence. The Jenkins house remained a place of dread, a reminder of the darkness that can lurk in even the most innocuous corners of the world. As for me, I can never forget the terror in Samuel Jenkins' eyes, the soulless gaze of a man who had become a monster in death. The memory of that night still haunts my dreams, a chilling reminder that some horrors are all too real,